What's up guys, and welcome back to another episode of La Liga Career Mode. This is episode number 55, and we're starting today's episode off on the back of our 12-goal thriller. Let me say that again. 12-goal thriller against Villarreal, which we won by 7 goals to 5 by turning around a couple of bits here for Sugawara and Nico Williams. A week to go before the transfer window slams shut in La Liga, but I'm going to make no change to my team whatsoever because despite losing our undefeated run to Real Madrid in the Super Cup and going out in the semi-finals in embarrassing fashion when I choked the penalty shootout, I'm 10 points clear in the race for La Liga title right now, and I'm keeping my team together. Still, heading into today's episode, there are 3 games today, guys. We've got Real Sociedad first, then a cup game against the second division side, Huesca, and then a third game right after transfer deadline day as well. In today's episode, it's going to be more of a sit down and chat, kind of discuss episode where we just talk about FIFA 22 and the gameplay as well, for the most part. So if you just want to see the results, then you can skip towards the end of today's episode where I'll mention all 3 of them together, and you can see the league table as well if you want to come back for the next episode where we'll be, talking about the gameplay immersively and what's going on the screen. But today's episode, I kind of just wanted to sit down and chat, a bit of an old school kind of video of mine where I just sort of discuss things really, talk about the gameplay itself and talk about FIFA 22 as a whole. So hopefully you guys enjoy this, and again, you'll see all the games on the screen, but I won't be discussing as much as to what's going on. So heading into today's episode, I really want to discuss this stuff with you guys because if you watched the last episode, you would have seen absolutely wild games against Real Madrid in the Super Cup, and then obviously that 12-goal game against Villarreal. And I guess today I just wanted to talk about the gameplay of FIFA really and discuss how I felt playing this game throughout the course of the FIFA year. Obviously I started off back in September. We began our main career mode with Brentford. It was a fantastic save. You guys loved it. Very, very appreciative of the support I had on that save. Of course, I did an Armenia Bielefeld career mode where I'll be discussing about this quite a bit because the emphasis of that series is all on defense, and of course it was impossible. I did a club and country save, we did our realistic career mode, if you will, with the Saints, and also now this one with Granada as well. I have mentioned many times before that this has been my favourite FIFA in years. I've absolutely loved playing it. I really have. It's been brilliant. It really has been a fun FIFA to play. And the main reason why is because of the challenge. It's been so much more difficult than previous FIFAs. You go back, 2 or 3 years, and I never like to blow smoke up my own you-know-what. I never like to come across as arrogant. When I talk about my ability on FIFA, I know I'm pretty good at the game, but I never think of myself as anywhere close to the level of the pro esports players. Of course not. I'm not even in their same ballpark, but I do think I'm a slightly above average player, at least I'd like to think so. Having said that, the challenge of this year's FIFA is why I've enjoyed it so much. It's been brilliant, I mean, you go back a few years and, I could take Fulham, a newly promoted side, to the Premier League title and the Champions League final in 2 years. It really was that simple. But since the introduction of Ultimate and the way the gameplay has changed, it's become a lot more difficult to win. And here we are, 4 seasons into the save, and we still haven't won a trophy yet. We still haven't won anything, despite the fact we're now a 5-star team with some of the best players in the world, such as Suarez, Maximiano, and that man Antonio Villar as well. So the difficulty is what's made me really enjoy this FIFA, because unlike before, where you could do, again, 2 seasons with a Bournemouth, for example, win the Champions League and call it a day, it's a lot more difficult now. RTGs are a lot more rewarding because it is tougher to make the progression, maybe not with your team, but in terms of, winning trophies, winning silverware, and, establishing dominance, if you will, either domestically or in Europe. And I think that's the main reason why I love the game. I think it's been fantastic. And I think EA are starting to realise now that if you're playing on the hardest difficulty, it should be hard. It should be difficult, regardless of what team you are, because it's the toughest difficulty. It is Ultimate. Previously, Legendary at times was, I'm not going to say easy, but it was, not that hard for someone that plays the game as much as I do, for example. But it is a lot harder now on Ultimate, and I appreciate EA understanding that the difficulty needed to be increased, and it certainly has been, no doubt about that. I think for me though, discussing the gameplay as a whole, I can be very complimentary of EA for making the game more difficult this year and changing a few things and tweaking a few things to aid that. But I do feel as though there are still a lot of flaws with the gameplay that I hope get eradicated, and there are a few which I'm going to talk about in today's episode. And I would love your opinions on this and what you think, and maybe you could disagree with me, and that's totally fine. But there are certain things that I think do need a little bit of a tweak. So for me, the first thing I'll talk about, and I've discussed it at length this season, is handicap. Now obviously handicap is a debatable thing. Some people believe it's in the game, some people think it isn't. I used to sit on the fence of handicap. I wasn't sure. You know, I talk about the big three: handicap, momentum, scripting. Scripting, I don't believe in. Momentum, I do. Handicap, I was always on the fence about handicap. I just never really knew for sure. But this season, I've kind of got off the fence a little bit and sort of stood in the camp where I do believe handicap probably does exist. Maybe not. Maybe the significance of handicap perhaps isn't as big as it might appear. Perhaps it's not as, noteworthy, if you will. It doesn't make as much of a difference, but I do believe it does make a slight difference. And the reason being is simple. Well, we've seen throughout the course of this save primarily that we've had, big wins against Barca where we've, thrashed them or, beaten Atletico or Real Madrid. Yes, it took us till this season to beat Real Madrid. We can score a lot of goals against Real Madrid. We scored 4 against them in the Super Cup, for example, at the Bernabeu with a mixed team, full of backup players and first team players. Whereas we'll take on, Mallorca have been the thorn in my side throughout the course of this save. Ironically, we did beat them back-to-back this year, and we really struggle. We'll take on bottom of the table, and I might have to grind out a 1-0 victory. And in the second game today, don't want to spoil it for you, we're taking on Huesca. They're in the playoffs right now in the Segunda Division. It should be a bit of a banker. I've got a really strong team out there, and I'm really struggling against them. They peg us back on 2 separate occasions in this game in what should be, let's be honest, a bit of a walkover. So I think handicap is definitely something EA need to address, because I've definitely felt it. In all the career modes I've done this year, I've been able to go against the big teams. And yeah, okay, sometimes I get spanked, especially in Season 1 or Season 2. But ordinarily, I can put up a really good fight against them. And then when I get to be a big team myself, like we are right now, I'll take on a lower league side, in the Cup, for example, right now. And I really struggle. And it does feel as though handicap exists in the game in that way. Now, I'm not saying handicap shouldn't be in the game whatsoever. I think it's EA's way of, especially online, trying to limit the disparity between quality of 2 teams if you're playing something like Ultimate Team, for example, to make it a bit fairer for those that might not have the funds to be able to buy loads of packs and get the best players, for example. Perhaps that's not a bad deal, but a bad thing. But I think especially in offline gameplay, I don't think it should be that noteworthy if in the game at all. So that's definitely one thing which I wanted to discuss. And again, I'd love your opinions whether you think handicap's in the game and whether you think it's a good thing or not if it is actually in the game. Another thing I wanted to discuss is the openness of games as well. Now, we drew that last game against Sociedad 3-3, and we had to score 4 goals here against Huesca, a Segunda Division side, with a 6.5 XG to beat them 4-3, courtesy of a bit of a goalkeeper mistake. Games are just too open, and I think that's definitely a thing that EA needs to improve upon, because EA do this thing, and it's quite frustrating, where, their fix to something is to make something that either previously didn't work, make it work too much, or vice versa. You go back a few years, and crossing used to be the most OP thing in the world. I mean, you sprint down the wing of a pacey player, whip it into the middle, someone's going to win a header 50% of the time, and 9 times out of 10, it'll probably find the back of the net. I think we all remember those days, and the days of Ibarbo in the box, for example. It was so frustrating, and then EA's fix for that was to make crossing just never work. Crossing became this thing where it was so OP. The crosses into the box had the most ridiculous swerve on them, regardless of what player is whipping it in. And then your man in the box will win the aerial duel 50% of the time. And then their fix was to make crossing almost, impossible to score from. And it's like, that's not a fix, EA, And it goes the same with goals in games as well. When you go back to the days of, FIFA 17, FIFA 18, I know I'm going back quite a few years here. Perhaps some of you guys didn't play back in these days, but I'll tell you what it was like. A lot of the games finished 0-0, 1-0, 1-1. They were very uneventful. They were very poor games. There weren't many goals getting scored on average. There was a season back in my FIFA 16 career mode Watford. It's on YouTube if you want to watch it. I think it was season 4. I won the league title with less than 40 goals. I am sure that's the case. I might be misremembering, but it was around 40. I won a league title with around 40 goals, perhaps fewer than 40 goals. It was ludicrous. We set a new defensive record every single season. You know, like we barely ever conceded. Games just routinely and regularly finished 0-0 or 1-0, and it was a really, kind of tedious game to play, if I'm being totally honest here. And EA's fix, it seems, is to go the complete opposite way. They realised that, okay, people aren't enjoying the game. Why is that? Because, well, goals make games, and there aren't enough goals in the game. So what do? Well, we make the game so open, so every game's like 4-3. No, that's not a fix, EA. That's not how you fix something, because what you find nowadays is what most people want. Not everyone. A lot of people still prefer the arcade kind of end-to-end action-packed game that FIFA is now, but a lot of people prefer realism. A lot of people prefer games which are realistic. Seasons in career mode saves that are realistic and close to what you could see happening in real life. I think nowadays, and I do keep up to date with the FIFA career mode on the Reddit, the subreddit. Shout out to our FIFA careers, long-term lurker of the sub there, though I don't of course post much. But I keep up to date with the FIFA career mode community, and as I'd always say, you play the game however you want, man. Like, you play FIFA however you want. You bought the game, you use your hard-earned money to buy it. You work a long day, you study a long day, whatever. When you want to play the game and have fun, play the game however you want. If you want to, spank every team 5-0 on semi-pro, go ahead. If you want a real raw challenge, go ahead. If you want to make it realistic, go ahead. If you want Cristiano Ronaldo at Forest Green Rovers, go ahead. It's your game. You play it however you want. You get the enjoyment from it however you want. It's your game. No one should tell you otherwise. But I do believe trends are changing in the fact that most people now do prefer a more realistic game. And, 12-goal games aren't realistic, It's ludicrous, like we had against Villarreal in the last episode. And for EA, that was their fix. The games went from being 0-0 or 1-0 every game to what they are now, which is ludicrous. 4-3 away against Huesca, 3-3 against Sociedad, 7-5 against Villarreal, and 4-4 against Real Madrid. Those are my last 4 games. And taking on Almeria, do you think it's going to be any different? Absolutely not. There were 4 goals in 38 minutes here in this last 16 round of the Copa del Rey. I think for EA, they need to realise that a lot of people do prefer realism. And it's okay to have end-to-end games every now and then. Not every game's going to be a standard 2-1, but the games are just too open, too action-packed, too end-to-end, and defending at times is just almost impossible. AI marking, for example, look at Robertone here, totally unmarked, he receives the ball. Okay, my defense is weak as well, but even so, it's embarrassing. The defense is so poor, and I think EA needs to get the right balance. They just don't know how to do that. Like, one thing works, and, and then one thing works too much, and then their fix is to nerf it completely so it never works again. Like crosses, for example. Low scoring games have now become every game's a high scoring game, and it needs to be addressed, I think, for me, because the games are, again, like I said, very weird and unrealistic, and it's like eating a bar of chocolate. I'm a vegan now, of course, but I do like my old plant-based chocolate. You eat one, it's like, oh, this is amazing, I love this bar of chocolate, it's so delicious. You eat another one, you get 3/4 of the way through it, and you're like, yeah, it's delicious, but maybe I should have just stuck with the one. You eat another one, it's like, okay, now I'm getting a bit sick of this. And that's kind of how I see these games. Everyone loves a thriller, everyone loves a 4-4 draw, everyone loves a dramatic goal glut game. But every game? No, it takes away the fun. Of course it does, It's like, again, eating a bar of chocolate, the best analogy I can use, One every now and then is fantastic, but every single time, you're going to get sick of it, aren't you? So I definitely think it's something that EA needs to work on, really, because, as I mentioned at the top of the episode, this has been my favourite FIFA in years. I've loved it, it's brilliant, the challenge is fantastic, but there are still certain things that do need to be worked on. Our last 5 games, 4-2 against Almeria, 4-3 against Huesca, 3-3 against Sociedad, 7-5 against Villarreal, and then 4-4 against Real Madrid. Not long ago, we had a 6-1 win against Espanyol as well. Yeah, the games do need to be changed a little bit, but I'd love to hear your opinions, guys. I've loved FIFA 22. It's been my favourite game in years, but there are certainly still things that I think need to be worked on FIFA 23. But let me know your opinions in the comments. Do you think the games are too open, too action-packed, or do you enjoy this arcade style of football in FIFA? Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. If you disagree with me, that's absolutely totally fine, but I'd love to hear your opinions, and let me know what you guys think. Even so, we do end up winning all 3 games today. we drew the Sociedad game and then won back-to-back. 3-3 draw against Sociedad, and then wins over Huesca and Almeria put us through to the quarterfinals of the Copa del Rey, where we'll take on Celta Vigo away. Tough one there. Have a great day though, guys. Thank you for listening, and again, please do let me know your comments in the comment section. Much love to you all, and I'll see you for next episode of La Liga Career Mode, where we'll be doing back to normal commentaries very soon.